Your mom,
One,
your
two,
mother,
three, check.
your mother.
You
Your mother?
You doing a Mike Pence impression?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, I used to live near that guy.
And I bet he's even weirder.
A tool.
Yes, he
I've
looks like.
seen him at in Starbucks, and just it's everything you think.
What's
Of
his
course.
order?
I don't know. I know Ben Affleck's order. Oddly, yeah. I did a great thing to Ben Affleck. I don't think I've told you this, Jason. One time, I used to 15, 20 years ago, worked training store managers for Starbucks. He came in, and you know how they're always like, "What's your name?" And that's annoying.
Right.
And my barista did not recognize that it was him.
Right.
And said, "Can I get your name?"
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of whispered that it's Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And my guy didn't hear him. It was very, very busy. And I'm watching the whole scene.
Right.
And he said, "Can I get your name again, sir?" And he's like, "It's Ben." And he fucking yelled at the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, when his drink gets done, give it to me and let me hand it out. Ice Venti, sugar-free vanilla iced coffee. I'll never forget it. And so when he got done, the place was full.
Right.
He did not want to be noticed.
Right.
So I went to hand his drink out, and I was like, Ice Venti, sugar-free vanilla iced coffee for Ben Affleck. Full name. Ben Affleck, your drink is ready. He couldn't leave for 30 minutes. He was signing autographs. I was like, don't be a dick. Jay Kroeger, not to be confused with Chad Kroeger,
No.
which is not
I think
his real name.
It's almost like a mission in my life to be big enough to where people will be like asking Chad, like, "Oh, you mean like Jake Kroeger?"
Oh yeah.
There's a thing called the Comedy Bureau, which was founded in 2010. It is an institution that covers comedy in Los Angeles and New York, and I created it. I run it. It's updated every day. It has listings for shows, mics, and has whatever I think is good, important, relevant in comedy posted on there.
You know, the Comedy Bureau is the spot. Like when I got here first, and I was like, all right, let's dig in.
Right.
This isn't Chicago. I don't know anybody. Let's go.
Right.
It was your site, which, you know, I don't know how you would go chasing all over L.A. without it, to be honest. Kudos. Also, I don't know why you do it. Why did you start doing it? Because that's amazing.
I started doing it because I started in 2009 out in here in LA, and at the time, you know, Bad Slava and other resources weren't updated as much, and I wasted so much time, money, and gas driving around LA and the greater LA area and ending up at some billiards hall and being told that they haven't had comedy there in 3 years. What are you doing here? And then also, like, that was at a time where, since that was the case, if you wanted to get up, you would just have to give your phone number to some guy named Steve, whether you're a guy, girl, or something else, and you just had to trust that he wasn't lying. And I hated that. And in my mind, comedy is already very hard. It's extremely hard. And it doesn't need to be made harder by just like hiding the information of where an open mic is. So I thought it would be really great if there was a centralized resource that was updated regularly. And then I didn't know what it would become, but I knew it would grow into something if I kept doing it every day. And I started like finding out about all the mics, and then I would find about all these underground shows that had a bunch of people that were like really good and like actually like worked on Conan or whatever. And like, why do people not know about this? Like, you don't have to buy 2 drinks. You could just go to this weird bar or vintage store or somebody's house and watch stand-up comedy or something else. I mean, that's the thing is like, it's the Comedy Bureau. It's not the Stand-Up Bureau.
Hey, nice.
Yes, that was very intentional. So there's a bunch of lovely sketch and improv and clown and podcasts.
Why do you think, sir,
Uh-huh.
there is a stigma against improv comedy by stand-up comics? Do you feel that you've heard that before? 'Cause I have.
I've definitely heard it before.
And why do you think that is? Because I think improv is like its own little genius thing.
Sure.
When you see, I mean, there could be times that I guess
Right.
it really sucks and you want to kill yourself. But like
Right.
most of the time when I've seen it, I've been like, oh, that's kind of fun. Like that they just, it's like freestyle rap. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Like it has an element to it that's a different skill set.
Right.
But then you think stand-ups, man, they really don't like.
Well, I think there's a certain amount of obsession with validation in comedy, no matter which discipline you choose. But with improv, the validation comes from your group, and then laughs come second. I mean, you just want to have fun doing make-em-ups, and then as a stand-up, I mean, I like having done stand-up, I could tell you that it feel like you want to justify how much sacrifice you've put into it by saying, "Oh, we're better," right? And we're almost like noble in our pursuit, solo on stage.
Everybody's on the cross.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm chomping at the bit. I want to say it.
But to me, it's all stupid because they're all lines drawn in the sand. We're all trying to make people kind of laugh, and so like, why are you getting mad that somebody did that? Yeah. Even like you mentioned purists. There are people I am friends with that they're very much like, even in just stand up, they're like they only want people to tell jokes and just jokes, and I get that, especially with this sort of new wave of crowd work, because crowd work has always existed. Sure, but also like people can riff and it can be fun, and that is also valid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. My experience has been, I started at Second City, going through the ranks, and wasn't great at it, and in fact learned that is a very different skill set in my mind than stand-up, and it took a long time for me to be like, don't repeat the joke, don't try to go for the laugh. It was more acting.
Right.
Just act like you. Somebody told me one time, Chris Farley doing Chippendales was so great because he really tried to be the best Chippendale he could be.
Right.
That's completely different than stand-up. It's a very different show.
Yeah.
I respect it so much, and it's so completely different. And I did a pilot with the IO Theater, which is where Chris Farley came from, and got to watch these guys backstage who are incredible actors. I don't even know how comedy seeps in there. I think it's just when they give you suggestions, you're doing that, but they're just great actors.
Right.
I remember them doing scenes, TJ and Dave, these two guys in Chicago that were legends, because Chicago's a huge scene.
TJ and Dave are legends, yeah.
Legends. But I've seen them do 30 minutes, and it was dramatic.
Yeah.
There was no comedy. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But for me, and I don't know about for everybody else, here's the reason I did not do well at improv and also didn't like it, and it's very similar to what you were saying, is it's a team effort. I don't like a team.
Sure.
I didn't want to be...
Right.
I didn't want to separate the check at the end of the night 8 ways.
Right.
Which is a metaphor because we never got paid.
Right.
And I just wanted to do it myself. I wanted the glory. It makes me a terrible person, but you know.
Right.
But man, it's a completely different art form, it feels like, and it's awesome. I can't do it.
I've watched enough where I've like held my own. I don't like actively go out and do it, but like I can hang with improvisers. And
So stand-up's your main jam.
Stand-up is my main jam, because, well, the thing I love about stand-up is that, sure, every form of comedy has structure and sort of rules and what have you, but I feel like stand-up, even more so than clown, as free as that purports to be, you're given a mic stand, and a stool, and some stage time. It is yours to do with however you will. If you want to bang your head against the microphone until you bleed, that's your choice. Or you could be like, what's the deal? You know, like you could do any of that. Yeah. And I feel like every other form of comedy is like, well, you got to do the thing. You got to act. Sure. You got to do, and I love the freedom of that. Where, and I definitely have taken my notches and like trying to get good, but like I enjoy just like going on stage and being present and not even having a set list and being connected to the crowd and figuring some connective tissue and having a lovely moment that's really funny. Yeah.
Did you ever, when you started off, like pretend to be another comic just to get into a thing, or did you always have your own style that just sort of came across that you honed?
Yeah, I was definitely like not copying somebody, but I mean it was like weird and not necessarily great.
Yeah.
Like
was there somebody that you saw that you were like, I want to be like them, whether you sometimes whatever it or not? Like,
I mean,
was
there
a
are people
person
I
that's like a North Star?
admire, but I don't know that I'm like them. Like, I mean, I like a lot of people that are really weird, and I know I can't commit like they do to weird bits and like not break and shit like that. Or if sometimes if you talk to them, you're like, oh, you're just that weird. You're not like this isn't
Is
like
that a bit? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bit. You're just really this weird. And so they're just like being themselves on stage, which is great.
Like your development. Like, how did that go that way? Where you were like, I started off and I wanted to be like this, but then I opened up and.
I definitely came from but a year before I actually started stand up, I was going to open mics, specifically this one open mic in Long Beach in a coffee shop that doesn't exist anymore, Portfolios, and they allowed you to do anything. You got 7 minutes, you didn't have to buy anything, and you just do anything. And as a result, it was a really lovely sort of incubator of people doing music and comedy and poetry. There's even this like Republican guy who would always go up at the end. His name is Jack. He would always wear a tweed blazer and a turtleneck, and he would just read a goddamn article from the newspaper.
Wow.
And just give his 2 cents.
Sure.
Because that was
Yeah.
his contribution. He
Yep.
wasn't trying to be funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was even trying to be entertaining.
Yeah.
He just wanted to participate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was that mic. Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
And he probably had no idea. He was like, this is what I'm doing. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, if you told him, it's not great. He'd
No.
be like, what?
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
whatever.
Well, yeah, what do you know?
Yeah.
I'm doing a different thing.
Yeah.
Experience the world with Delta Airlines. Enjoy unparalleled comfort, exceptional service, and seamless travel to over 300 destinations worldwide. Fly Delta and let your journey begin.
I'm a little envious of people. There's this band called Future Islands.
Oh, I know Future Islands.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there is this gentleman that and I'd known about them a little bit, and then I watched them do this set during COVID.
Uh-huh.
I am so disturbed.
You talking about Letterman?
No, but I have seen that too.
Right.
I've watched everything now that they've done.
Right.
I guess I'm a fan because I watch everything. But here's I'll be totally vulnerable with you. It bothers me so much watching that guy because I think he means it. Like, I think he's vulnerable, and I think he means it.
Sure.
And he looks weird, and I
Sure.
don't think he's being Tom Waits on purpose.
No.
He's just, I'm just going to be weird. I don't think he thinks about it at all. I mean, surely he does somewhat.
Right.
It bothers me so much because I'm like, I could never do that.
Right.
I could never get in touch with that. That's probably why I could never be a good actor, truly.
Right.
Because I'm like, no, I care too much.
But I mean,
He's so
the
vulnerable.
flip side of that is, have you ever just like, you've heard it obviously, but have you ever like focused in on how bad most musicians are in between songs trying to be funny? They're
That's
like,
so good.
They're awful, with like a few glaring exceptions, but they're usually like very bad. And then they try to like play it off like, oh, that was like supposed to be bad. Isn't that funny? I'm gonna play a song now, everyone. Please forget about that.
True.
Because they have the whole the song and the instruments and their
Well,
voice.
Bill Burr was the guy who said actors. Well, I mean, his statement, which I kind of believe, is that a comedian could be an actor,
For sure.
where an actor couldn't be a comedian.
Right.
It could maybe
Right.
you can rehearse it to the point, but being a comedian is a different thing.
Sure.
Like, as the years have progressed, I noticed like the jokes need to be there, but that's kind of like 30%. Like, there's a life you have to lead, a personality that you have to sort of be about, and you have to be critical, I think, of things to be interested in things.
Also, I will say this: there's a very like a weird sort of intangible difference when you're like performing live as a comedian versus like acting. And there's a lot of solo shows that happen at Lyric, and you can see the difference like a light switch, because a lot of these shows, like, they're works in progress and people are kind of figuring it out. And sometimes, like, the tech won't work, and that, that's fine.
Sure.
But like, they'll break from the script and then they'll like try to vamp. And you'll see they're like, oh, it's you. Hi, hey,
Yeah.
hi.
Yeah.
Rather than they were like reciting this thing at you.
Right.
And it's usually more fun.
Is it when
Yeah.
they break the wall?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mistake happens. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're on this like sort of narrative, and the expectation set that it's kind of been all scripted, and you're supposed to just mainly like listen and laugh versus
Right.
like, now we're like having this interesting like dialogue now, kind of.
Yeah.
But like,
That's so true, though.
yeah, I think like kind of circling back with all the other questions you asked, I started out at this mic doing spoken word, not comedy, and Bob Dylan covers that annoyed the shit out of people.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just ended up hanging out with all the comedians at that mic, and I really loved that. And it was just a matter of time before I started doing stand-up. And like a year later, I ended up doing stand-up. But there was a transitional phase where I would do like 50-50. I would do like spoken word, and then comedy. I wouldn't tell people which was which or when. Yeah. And I would just do it, and it was really weird.
Yeah.
And I don't suggest anybody really do that. It's a bad idea. As I started doing stand-up in 2010, I like honestly just like fell into it. Like I wanted nothing to do with being funny at all. I went to USC Film School with the idea of becoming like an Alfred Hitchcock type.
So this after college, after like
I
being out in the world.
I worked every shitty film and TV job that involved moving a thing from one place to another or taking a piece of paper from one person and getting it signed by another person, or just
The dream.
standing around trying to look busy. Like whatever that was, I did so much of that, and I thought like, oh yeah, I'll go like right on the weekends and I'll get my amazing screenplay written and somebody will read it, and like I was so exhausted from all those gigs that never happened. And another beautiful thing about stand-up is that I mean there is a lot of work that's involved, but I mean you kind of just like have to show up,
Yeah.
and you're just accountable to yourself. And I rather than just sort of like toiling away writing a screenplay that you'd hope somebody would like, but I mean, was my experience where I had somebody was nice enough to read it, but then was mean enough to have coffee with me in person to tell me like, this is like bad. This is like, I think you should just toss this and like go write something else. This is just not
That's wonderful.
salvageable.
I think that's such a blessing, though.
You could have just sent an email. You didn't need to say that to my goddamn face.
Yes.
Yeah, in a coffee shop.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was great.
I kind of will say, like, yeah, there is something, though, about, like, one of the things we talk about as stand-up is just, like, there's the great stories where you killed and crushed in a room, but
Right.
it's those horror stories where,
Mm-hmm.
I can think of all these times that I'm like, this joke is going to just, people are going to fall over themselves, and
Right.
nobody even blinks or
Right.
cares.
Party to that. All right, so I can't pinpoint a specific moment where I knew I wanted to be a comic. I really did just fall into it. But I will tell you, there was a moment very recently, about like 2 months ago, that sort of reaffirmed like my love for comedy and stand-up and like being a comedian and why it's great. The general manager of our theater, Mike Bridenstine, who's a great comedian himself, also wrote a book about Chicago comedy called The Perfect Amount of Wrong.
Oh,
Title. Yes, very great title. Kind of sussing out what was in the water at the time of the Lion's Den,
Okay.
if you remember.
The Lion's Den?
The Lion's Den was an open
Porn
mic.
shop?
No.
Oh.
It was a bar that had an open mic where at one time like Kyle Kinane, Nick
Okay.
Vatterott, and all these like Hannibal Buress.
Yeah,
all
I
wa-
started with him.
Like all went up at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. The Lion's Den?
The Lion's Den.
I don't know if I know it. All right.
Yeah.
I was not
You
that
should
connected.
read the book.
I will.
It's available wherever you get your books.
Okay.
But Mike's neighbor is a non-magician member of the Magic Castle, which is a very expensive thing to do, but it allows you the privilege of inviting friends of yours whenever you'd like to the Magic Castle free of charge, and you don't have to buy dinner. So, yes, Mike invited me and some other people at the theater to enjoy a night of magic. The Magic Castle is a pinnacle of magic. You know, you're supposed to see some of the best in the world. And we watched about like 7 magic shows. And after that, everyone who was in the party of us like going to the Magic Castle, they're convinced I'm dead inside because the most anyone got out of me was like, huh, how about that?
I just put my head back on.
Yeah, when people are doing David Blaine shit, we're like, oh my God, like getting up out of their chair, like, what? And so I thought and reflected about it, and here's the thing, is you are at the Magic Castle. Of course you're going to get my card. You have to, or else you wouldn't be here. Of course there's a lemon under the cocktail shaker where there wasn't, because...
It better be.
Because, yes. So with that in mind, there are no stakes. And I'm just speaking for me. But like, of course, something amazing is going to happen. That's why we're here. Yeah. There's no, like, real potential to fail. Comedy, on the other hand, doesn't matter how good you are, how long you've done it, how good your material is. You could still bomb at any time, and that is thrilling.
Oh my goodness!
Anytime, yeah. Doesn't matter if you are a headlining comedian and you're playing a gala and everyone's there. Like, you could bomb.
Yeah,
that's.
You don't never know the chemical makeup of the room. You can't control that.
No.
And so then, any hot. So
well, I mean, like, yeah, Lyric can be hot, and the Elysian can be hot, and so it can. Dynasty Typewriter, and there are things at the Comedy Store that are hot, and like I think a lot of the cooler things happen in the belly room. Yes. Because that's where they take more chances rather than just put up famous rich people who are just reading off their notes in the main room while you pay $25 and 2 drinks.
So, in your opinion, then, about the belly room and rooms like it or whatever, what are the things? To make a hot room? It's got to be a theme. Does it got to have a gimmick? What are your thoughts?
Well, I feel like the space has to have an identity, and it has to have some consistency, to the point where you can get to. Well, so when you, I'm just going to use UCB as an example, although it's sort of changed. UCB pre-pandemic was so popular and had such a good handle on what they did, you would see a line out the door on Franklin all the time. And often when I would go to shows, I would overhear or you'd talk to people, and they would not really even know what they were watching. They just heard it was great, it was cool, and they wanted in. And so that was part and parcel of them doing shows 7 nights a week, and them curating it to a great degree of, I mean, their sort of wheelhouses like improv with some sketch, and then they'll tolerate some stand-up. Even though for a long time, historically, they had like some of the biggest stand-up shows.
UCBS has some biggies, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And and that is so people know to go there for that. Like, you know, when you mention Largo, you already, like, just, you know what's there and why you would go. Versus, like, I mean, that's the challenge when you open a new venue. Unless there's, like, outside of the, you know, random one-off that might, like, get people in the door. Right. Like, all right, what is this venue? What shows happen here? Why should people come here? You know?
Yeah, like what gets it hot? And I think that's like, I think that's what everybody's looking to find out, right? Like, it's like, is it the theme? Is it you gotta have hot chicks, you gotta have this, you know?
Right. Or I mean, conversely, so like they do showcase shows at like the Hollywood Comedy,
Yeah.
and it's just like commercial actors, just like 8 to 10 of them at a time, and that's that, and like if that's what you want to see, that's there for you, but if that's not what you want to see, then that's not going to be where you're going to go.
I will tell you, I was doing a show at the Hollywood Comedy, and I was walking in, and on the line, I heard it was a line outside the door, young kids.
Sure.
And they were like, "This is where the edgiest comedians play." And I was like, I don't know what kind of advertisement you're putting out or what your brand is, but you are crushing it. Because, I mean, Hollywood Comedy is great. I've had a good time there. But, like, it's dark, so maybe it gives it. But these kids were convinced they were going to see, like, the new Kennison. And I was like, that's amazing that you were able to establish a brand however you did it for that venue.
It's so ironic that people say that when, I feel like when people say that, they're like, oh, so in their mind, they're like, oh, someone's going to say the R word. Ooh, how dark and edgy are we being? Yeah. That's boring. Right. Yeah. It's boring. Yeah. Just like magic. Yeah, I know you're going to do it. Yeah. That's what we're expecting. Yeah. What's truly dark, what's truly edgy, and bold, and like, are you really willing to go on a journey? Is people being open, like comedians being open and vulnerable with their wounds or trauma or what have you, in a way where, like, yeah, they're gonna get to like some jokes and some funny parts, but they're gonna talk about maybe being bipolar or something awful that happened to them, and it's just gonna like be it's actually like a disservice to yourself as a comedian if you're trying to like just kill. Like if you, I'm not saying don't do well or don't even try to not do well, but like you're there to test out ideas that you've had that you just don't really know if they're gonna work. So that's just part of it. And if anything, the silence or the air being sucked out should be prescriptive and instructive, like, okay, so that was like not good. Yeah. Let's like not do that. Let's do maybe the opposite or something. Yeah. I think those spaces need to exist. Otherwise, you're going to like, I would say something like Accidental Chaos is weirdly its own safe space where fratty guys can be fratty and just say whatever the fuck they want for schadenfreude purposes, and that's what they want to do, and that's what works there. But like if you're wanting to actually be the artist as a comedian, I feel like you don't have to like, I wouldn't go so far as to say, oh, you got to kill everywhere. But it is in service of your voice and you developing that you should play a lot of different rooms. And you can find that you don't like a room. Maybe you don't even feel safe. You don't got to play that room. That's fine. But like, don't just stick to like one thing. You'll find out a lot of different things and people, and you'll find out a lot about yourself. I mean, it's always a trial by fire that some people do. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival, do you guys know? So often they'll go and do a solo show or an hour or something in Edinburgh, Scotland in August, and often is the case that you do 30 shows in 30 days, which is insane and dumb, but like it really gets you attuned to like, okay, this is like what works. Because in my mind, I wouldn't even say like, I would say that like your voice comedically is the intersection of like what you want to do and what works. Like you shouldn't be doing like comedy that you hate just because like, oh, you gotta laugh once. And it might be a long walk to like find that intersection, but that is like what it should be.
Thank you so much for enjoying the Getting Up podcast. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.